Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Lauren Shippy. She is the founder of StoryWork and the author of a new book called Seen, Known, and Heard. Can you say hi, Lauren?
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I think this is awesome. We have a lot in common, actually, our background. And she is definitely focused on helping people with their brand. Is that the right word? And it really all comes down to so many different factors. And so what prompted you? I'm just curious to start StoryWork because I know you have a long background in business. So what prompted you to do your own?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was about 7 years ago now, I guess. I started out working for a startup real estate investment trust and started cold calls on the sales department. I really didn't enjoy it, but it was such a great experience to learn how to call everyone. And, funny story. When I grew up, I actually hated calling places, like even to order pizza, and my best friend loved it. So she would call the places where we didn't know people, and I would call the friends because she didn't like to do that. So anyway, started out in cold calling, worked my way all the way up to operations manager, then COO by the time I left, and then went on to build several other startup companies as well as a family investment office. And in that process, I got to see just a lot of startups and entrepreneurs and their due diligence and how they operated their companies and positioned their offerings and all of these things. But more than that, I saw all of the people dynamics at play and how that impacted the growth and success or failure of their companies. And about 7 years ago, I just wanted to be on the other side of that. I wanted to be able to help them see above themselves, so to speak. I was just in a meeting this morning and we were talking with a client about how they think that everyone knows what they do, but they realize now, having an outside perspective, that the things that are so plain to them are not communicated and plain to others that need to see it, aka their customers. So I think that's really what drove me to start StoryWork.
A lot of us take our knowledge for granted. We don't value what we know. So it sounds like you're taking all your knowledge and you're helping other people.
Yeah,
And I like
yeah.
the word, the name of your company, StoryWork, because our stories are so important for businesses and you're helping them. And so are your clients actual other businesses or agencies? I was just curious on
So
that.
we've worked with so many different types of clients. So under StoryWork, there are three different pillars. There's leadership, there's strategy, and there's marketing. And so I'm a partner in a full service marketing agency called the Marketing Engine. And that's really where we help people see, know, and hear their clients and serve them well. And then I also work with leaders individually in a coaching setting to help them identify how they can see, know, and hear themselves better.
That's awesome. Help get their message out there. And I think your communication skills definitely come in handy and you're helping others. And I think we can all improve on our communication, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
So true.
not perfect and we
Yeah.
all need to improve upon that. And I just think what you're doing is you're kind of helping people, well, like you mentioned that the coaching aspect, you're seeing themselves a little bit better, right?
Yeah, I think we can get so, I mean, you know that we both probably do this. I do it too. I can just get so stuck in kind of a tunnel vision or, like in a silo by myself, and I can't see outside of myself to see, do my offerings make sense? Am I actually reaching the people that I need to reach? Where am I going? And so I really think that that is our job at Storywork, to help them define their stories and make them matter, which is really another way of saying to help people and companies operate in their lane or in their purpose. Because anytime we deviate outside of that, it's draining, it's stressful, all of those things. And yet we can so easily get taken off course.
It helps you focus. Like when you say you can get off course. And
Yeah.
I joke that my avatar is probably a dog because I think that's I'm naturally I do like dogs, trust me. But I joke so that you're helping people to help them focus, you're training them. I'm just being
It's
funny.
true.
Kind of training them like a dog.
It's very true. Just to have that clarity and those rhythms that help them be able to focus and get that for themselves at the end of the day.
It'll help them grow their business. It'll help them tweak. Sometimes you're gonna have to tweak,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
pivot. Is that the better word?
Yeah, pivot. I mean, I think there are, sometimes small things, this is a famous saying, but like small things done consistently over time make great impact. And that's really true with our daily rhythms. And so when I first started StoryWork, I had just an inventory of your daily time, and it was time matters, right? And, I think it's really when we actually examine our days and how we're spending our days, it reveals a lot on our priorities, and our time may not necessarily actually reflect our priorities. And so really the key there is identifying the gaps and making those tweaks or pivots, as you say, to get back on track, to make sure those things are aligned.
That is really important. I just think a lot of people I've noticed, or a lot of they're becoming entrepreneurs and starting their own businesses too, especially after they've been in the corporate world,
Yeah.
right? There's just a lot of, I should say, a mess going on. And I think so people like you, what you're doing, you're helping them get on track. What can they offer? And I started doing my own thing based on feedback from clients. So that was helpful as well. So I'm assuming you help them choose the right, not choose, but find the right clients,
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely. I mean, if they can, this is part of what we do in the strategic foundational work is we help generate user personas. A lot
Yeah.
of people are familiar with user personas, but we really take it to another level because when I'm doing these with the client, I'm really thinking through where do they go every day? What do they do? But most importantly, what are their core desires? Like, what are their actual greatest needs? Is it safety? Is it joy? Is it, what's that core emotion that they're looking for? And let's speak to that, right? In how you're attracting people to you. So that's really been the most powerful thing. And that's what we call identity-based strategy at
Right.
StoryWork.
Right. And do you have, as you're saying that, do you do like polls with particular client or potential clients of what they actually want as well? Right.
Yeah, it depends on the clients, and especially every couple years, I think it's good in the planning process to kind of have almost a reset time where you're taking information in and using polls to get feedback, and then you're making those tweaks or pivots based on that. Because I think, I don't know, just in my experience so far in business, it's been like every 3 to 5 years, almost a major overhaul is needed. So even I'm in that period right now where I'm looking at all of my offerings and I'm thinking about, okay, what do people need now for this next season? Because we're almost in this new era where things are changing and shifting, and we have AI out there, right? And we've got all of that stuff. And so people don't have as much need for maybe copy generation per se on our marketing agency side. But what they do have a need for is the ability to see, know, and hear people and be really intentional about the ways that they're reaching them and the ways they're adding delight. So that's just one example of like taking in the marketplace, taking in the themes, and then making a shift based on that.
Right. It is can be overwhelming for businesses and just people in general. And I think we do need to embrace, unfortunately, the AI. I've learned more about it just because I want to understand it, how it can affect and how it can help. And right now, there's so much, I shouldn't say gobbledygook out there, but
There
it,
is. There's a lot of just automatically generated content. And,
yes,
I was at a digital marketing summit a couple months back and we were talking about AI and the impact of it. And, it's really, I mean, sure, for SEO purposes, can it, get you higher in the search results, right? Or the algorithms on social media? Yes. But are people going to engage with your content or contact you? No, not unless you're intentionally tweaking it, taking that
yes,
extra time to tweak it based on what people really want.
Correct. And one of my part of my quote brand is I'm all about quality. And that's
Yes.
kind of why I became, maybe it's just natural. I'm very detailed at things. And maybe that's why I see the gobbledygook because I'm like, no one, I don't know, it's just how I am. And it does need to be edited. It's not going to take over writing anytime soon. And I've noticed that people are just, I don't know, maybe they're doing it just to get distracted to grow their business, to learn more about it. You know what I'm saying? They're finding ways to, they're still putting those blocks of proceeding with what they need to be doing. And I'm guilty too. Um, I
Yeah.
get okay, we're all guilty of that, but we just need to have someone like, your company to help them figure out the path to be on. And you're setting yourself free too. Is that the right word? You're helping them be themselves. That makes you stand out. We all have rules to follow. It's important, but at the same time, what makes Lauren stand out, right, compared to your competition?
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. A couple things come to mind with that. I feel like one of my greatest roles in the world, I guess this is my bigger purpose, is really to help people get more freedom, to help people get unblocked, unstuck, and get them clarity and get them running in the lane that is meant for them. And I think, I always think about this, like no one else will do it like you will, right? That sounds so
Yes.
simple, but really think about that. Not one other person on the planet will do things exactly the way you do them. And I do believe that it's very important that we all stay in our lane, or we walk in who we are, because when we do that, then we automatically stand out. But there's all kinds of things that can get in the way, right? There's insecurity, there's fear, there's self-doubt, there's trauma, there's all kinds of things. And in the book, I actually talk about this. I call this section the weeds in the way. And it's one of my favorite parts because, we all have weeds in the way, and that we have to actually pull out and uproot, and recognize. And then once we can call them out and say, hey, wait a minute, why am I afraid of this? What's actually happening here? What's underneath of that? Where did that come from? I don't think I need that anymore. It's no longer serving me, and so the more that we can uproot those weeds, the more we can become free. And that also, you and I were talking about resilience before this, before we hopped on here in the recording, and that builds resilience, that process of uprooting weeds and throwing them aside so that we can run a good race.
I like the analogy that you're using with the weeds. I think it's a great idea. It also allows you to be free, and I think you're going to attract the right clients to you if you're being you.
That's true. That's really true because I think I was writing about this, like just journaling about it earlier in the week. The more time that we spend accommodating, saying, oh, I could do this too. Or, maybe it comes from a place of just wanting to please, or maybe even sometimes a prideful place where we're like, I got it, like I can do it. Unfortunately, then that's operating outside of our lane, and we're not going to be as effective in that place. So, one thing I've personally just been asking myself a lot the last few weeks is, what is my lane? Like, what is that actual narrower road that I know that I can be really, really good and really help people? And then being committed to stay in that lane.
Correct. You got to be committed. You have to have a path. You have to have some goals. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
And getting
Yeah.
those weeds out of the way, like
Get
you
those weeds out of the way.
get
Yeah.
the weeds out of the way. And I just think people in general, not just business, but personal life too, we have all that stuff is intertwined, especially if you're a parent. I'm just kind of go off a tangent here a little bit. Being a
Oh,
parent
yeah.
can be hard too, especially if you own your own business. And I think, is it, I've been self-employed for a long time, so I haven't been in that environment too much about the work stuff and family stuff. Do you see that still, is it a problem or prevalent, or people, are they more open about that now, about their home? I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
No, wait, can you ask that one more time? So you,
Are people bringing their personal issues to work? How's that? Because
oh, yes, okay.
that's what, when I was in the corporate world, we were really kept really quiet about it, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
suppressed it.
I think, that's a great question. I think our culture, oh, this is a double-edged sword, right? So there's a
Sorry.
good part of this. This is great. There's a good part of it, and then there's I think a downside to it. So the good thing is I think we're recognizing our emotions a lot more. We are talking about emotions a lot more. Counseling has grown, self-help has grown, right? All of these things have increased. And I think as we've come into that new wave, it's become maybe more acceptable to talk about or process things in the workplace. The downside of that is that sometimes we can go a little bit too far into it, and then that can cause problems. That can cause webs of confusion or distraction. So I
Right.
really think that it's a huge part of maintaining a good culture to make sure that you're providing the help for people. And I actually know companies that provide counseling services for their employees as part of their benefits and
Right.
spaces to be able to process, but then, in the workplace, just having healthy guidelines and
Right.
boundaries. And that really comes back to leadership too.
I was, as you were talking, it just made me think about my sons are adults now, but back in the day, it was unusual for, like, I had my first child and I brought a breast pump to work,
Oh
and
yeah.
some
Yeah.
of the employees, I went to the bathroom, they were complaining about the noise. I'm like, but I want to do the right thing for my son.
You
And
could never do that now. Complain
right,
about that. That would not
but
fly.
back then they were complaining. I'm like, but I'm going to explode here. You just
Right.
gotta,
I have to.
right, you understand that. And then eventually I was like, okay, so my boss was really, I call my boss, but I'm like, well, can I, and the emails came out, can I start working remotely now for a little bit? And they were okay with that. And
Okay.
and because like then I won't make so much noise. And but that's kind of how I framed it. And I thought they would be open to it, but most of the people in the office were men. So that they probably were like, oh God, we know what she's doing in there, and it grossed them out.
Yeah, they just
I just had to share that because it was not
oh,
normal.
yeah.
And another example, I brought my son to a business meeting one time because I didn't have a babysitter, but the client was a woman at IBM. And so she understood. She said, you can bring your son. So that I think is more common now, maybe. I didn't
It is.
want to bring my son, trust me,
Yeah.
but it was an important meeting.
It is a
And
lot more. I think, especially since COVID, I think there's a lot more flexibility,
yes, good.
more flexibility for, working from home, hybrid schedules, when you have kids in the background. I mean, I know for me, we're coming up on, at the time of this recording, almost summer. So, I mean, there are going to be days where I'm recording or I'm on a Zoom meeting and my kids are here. I mean, I think that's a part of life. And I do think that it's become more acceptable,
That's good.
but years ago, I mean, years ago, it was not like
Yeah,
it
that's
really
why
was.
I brought this up because my experience in the corporate world, I was very fortunate, Lauren, to have a good manager who was a good leader.
Mm.
He understood, he knew I had the potential, and but my coworkers were didn't like the noise. I didn't realize I couldn't do it in my office. I had to go in the bathroom,
You needed
right?
like a noise machine or something,
That's what they needed. I'm sorry, guys. It's just how it is. But
Oh,
in a way, I kind of like that we're being a little bit more open with our, the work environment. But, my kids are adults now, but it has changed a lot. And we didn't have, gosh, I think mobile phones just came out, but mine was in a suitcase, Lauren. So,
yes. Yes. And like remember the ones that were screwed into the dashboard in the car?
yes, that,
Not the
that,
dashboard, the console, like the center
yes, that too.
console.
It's just how cool in a way how technology, that's the good side of technology. And I'm just blessed that I had a great manager who let me do stuff because I was in a sales roles, right? And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
had to travel. I'm like, why am I having to go to the office? And so it's, to me, the leadership and the clients and just kind of what you're talking about your company, is the good communication with, I think that's important too.
It is, for that flexibility to be extended to you, because if you are, that allows you to run in your lane well and not get caught
Yes,
up in the,
exactly.
oh, well, they're not, they're holding me back or they're not doing this. And then you can get caught up in the dynamics. And then that's where the spider web can spin, and
And that's when you'll have people quit. If you're
yeah,
not, I mean, there's just every situation is different. And I was just fortunate, like I had mentioned, to
yeah.
have some good leadership who believed in me,
Mm,
and they made me feel comfortable. And I think that's important, especially as you're building a company and
absolutely.
growing it, or you don't have to be some huge organization to help other people. You just have to find, like you said, your lane. And I think that's really awesome. I love, again, the name of your company and the name of your book. One more question I have for you is, how do you think, to help people, one piece of advice to make your next move in your life or in business? What's the word? At least one takeaway.
I love that you asked this question because I actually was recording a podcast on this morning, and it was a just a word that came to me. It's like a paragraph about going to a new place, and I think that a lot of us, especially in this year, there seems to be this shift happening of people kind of sitting back and thinking like, some of the old ways or the old things that I used to do, whether they're patterns or whether they are offerings or, careers or geographically, they're not working anymore. I think there's a different way. I think there's a new way maybe coming. And so I was just talking about how to enter into the new way. And I really think that what I would encourage anyone listening to this to do is to spend time cultivating that. It does require you to remove some distraction. Like there are times like right now I'm on like a 10-day social media fast where I'm not going on social media to just be quiet so that I can hear more, like so that I can really listen to myself and listen to like where am I going? What am I doing? And so the biggest thing I would say is clear out distraction, just get quiet and really seek clarity on what things are not going to work anymore in this new season. That would be the
Right.
greatest thing, because then when that time comes, because of whatever shifts in the world or shifts around you are going to happen, you will be better prepared and equipped to handle it.
I love that. You just reflecting on what's going on and you need some quiet time and you're kind of like pausing in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
And you just got to find time for that. And that will definitely help you understand what's going on around you and how to make your next step.
yeah.
Is that the
And
right
that,
way?
the world never stops, so you have to choose to.
I love that. That is a great thing. And it's something that I needed to hear as well, Lauren. I mean, because I mean, my industry, every industry is changing, and so I've been like, "Oh, what do I do next?" Right? And so I try to, and I like s- having conversations like this on the podcast. It just gives
Mhm.
ideas for me and for other people and for you, the guest. You
Yeah.
just don't know what's going to pop into your mind, and I love to write notes down because it just helps me. I'm very tactile in a way. I still have to write things for it to stick into my brain,
Good.
if that makes sense.
Okay.
Anyway, well, I really appreciate your time, Lauren. So where can people learn more about you?
Sure, they can head to www.storywork.co, or my personal author page is laurencshippy.com. So either one of those will get you the information you need, and there's all kinds of good stuff on there for you.
I think this is awesome, and I really appreciate your time, and it is very valuable, the information that you shared. For those that are listening, I will have the link she mentioned in the description. Thanks again, Lauren.
Great, thanks so much for having me.